Good morning, afternoon, everyone. Today I'll be presenting a paper survey on environmental injection attack on Generalist web agent for privacy leakage from ICLR 2025. This work addresses critical privacy concerns in the emerging field of web agent. Let's start with the motivation. The web has become an integral part of our lives, hosting countless websites and tools. Recent advances in large language models and large multimodal models have enabled the development of powerful web agents. These are not simple chatbots, they are generalist agents that can autonomously perform complex tasks across real websites, from booking flights to online shopping. The goal is noble: boost human productivity and make web resources more accessible. The problem here, however, here's the critical issue. Many tasks require sensitive personally identifiable information (PII). When you book a flight, you need to provide your email, phone number, credit card details. While the web security community has studied website privacy for years, the emergence of these generalist web agents introduce new privacy risks that haven't been thoroughly explored. This is the gap we are addressing today. The fundamental research question is, what privacy risk do generalist web agents face when they interact with compromised websites? Before diving into the attack, let's establish what we mean by a generalist web agent and how it works. A generalist web agent is an autonomous system powered by large multimodal models that can interact with websites to complete tasks. The key word here is generalist. It can handle diverse tasks across different websites, not just one specific function. These agents take the C-Act framework as an example, which we'll discuss more later. The workflow is straightforward. First, a user provides a task request that typically contains PII. For example, book a flight from Columbus to Los Angeles on May 13 with my email abc@gmail.com. The agent then observes the web page through both HTML content and rendered screenshots. Based on these observations, it generates and executes actions automatically until the task is complete. This figure shows a real example of how a web agent interacts with a website. You can see the agent needs to process both visual and structural information to understand where to click and what information to input. Notice how the agent has access to sensitive user information throughout this process. This is exactly what makes it vulnerable to attacks. The power of these agents lies in their autonomy, but as we'll see, this autonomy also creates security vulnerabilities. Now let's examine specifically what information is at risk when web agents interact with compromised websites. The paper identifies two types of information that can be leaked. First, specific PII. These are individual pieces of sensitive information like email addresses, phone numbers, credit card details, and personal names. Leaking any of these is already a serious privacy violation, but the second category is even more concerning. full user request. Remember that task we mentioned? Book a flight from CMH to LAX on May 13 with my email abc@gmail.com. This entire request contains not just the email, but also reveals your travel plans, date, locations, and transportation preferences. This contextual information can be far more valuable to attackers than isolated pieces of PII. How do websites become compromised? The paper presents two realistic scenarios. First, contaminated development tools. Most web developers don't write everything from scratch. They use libraries like React, Vue.js, or Bootstrap. These are open source tools that make development efficient. But here is the problem. If these libraries are compromised, any website using them becomes vulnerable. This isn't hypothetical. The paper cites a recent CISA report about the XZlibs backdoor that affected many Linux systems. The vulnerability was stealthy and persisted before detection, meaning many systems were already compromised. Second, malicious developers themselves. Developers routinely update websites with new features. If a developer wants to profit from this access, they could intentionally inject malicious content during these updates. The malicious codes would appear as normally functionality, making it difficult to detect it in code reviews. The key concern here is that web agents operating autonomously and with access to sensitive information may unknowingly leak this data to compromise websites without the user ever knowing. So why hasn't this problem been studied before? Let's look at what research exists and where the gaps are. There's actually quite a bit of related works. We have extensive research in traditional web security, things like SQL injection, cross-site scripting. We also have recent work on prompt injection attacks against large language models. And of course, there's a substantial research on developing better web agents. But here's what's missing. There's virtually no research on the privacy risk that web agents specifically face, especially in adversarial environments. Previous work hasn't focused on how attacks can be adapted to the web environment to maximize success while minimizing detection. The limited prior work that exists has significant limitations. Some researchers have looked at backdoor attacks, but these require fine-tuning the model that's not realistic for attacking the deployed system. Others have studied image manipulation or retrieval-based attacks. However, most of the work focuses on disrupting the agent's functionality rather than stealing privacy information. If the agent stops working, the user notices immediately and stops using the website. That's not a successful attack from the adversary perspective. This is where this paper makes its contribution. It's the first comprehensive study specifically examining privacy leakage risk of Generalist, a web agent in adversarial environment. The paper developed a realistic threat model, proposes a novel attack method specifically adapted to web environment and evaluates it on state-of-the-art web agent to demonstrate the real risk involved. Let's summarize the four main contributions of this paper. Contribution 1. Threat models. First, the paper developed a comprehensive threat model. This isn't just about saying attacks exist, it carefully defines what attackers want to achieve, the two adversarial targets we discussed, what constraints they operate under, they don't know the user's task in advance, and presents two realistic scenarios for how websites get compromised. This threat model grounds the entire research in realistic conditions. Contribution 2. EIA method. This is the second and most important items. The paper proposes environmental injection attack, or EIA. This is a novel attack method that's particularly interesting because it emphasizes adaptation to the environment rather than just clever prompt design. Most prompt injection research focuses on crafting the perfect malicious prompt. EIA takes a different approach. It focuses on how to seamlessly integrate the attack into the web environment itself. The paper develops two injection strategies: from form injection, which creates new forms, and mirror injection, which cleverly mimics existing elements on the page. There's also a variant called Relax EIA, specifically designed to steal full user requests, not just individual PII fields. Contribution 3. Evaluation. The third contribution is the comprehensive evaluation. The authors collected 177 action steps involving various types of PII from the Mind2Web dataset, which contains real websites and realistic tasks. They tested against C-Act, one of the most capable web agent frameworks, using multiple LLM backbones, including GPT-4v. The results are striking: up to 70% attack success rate for stealing specific PII, and 16% for stealing full user requests. These aren't trivial success rates. They represent real privacy risk. Contribution 4 is the defense analysis. The paper thoroughly analyzed detection and defense mechanism. They show that traditional web security tools like VirusTotal completely fail to detect these attacks, 0% detection rate. They also test defensive system prompts and show these are ineffective. The paper then discusses the fundamental trade-off between autonomy and security, and calls for more advanced defense strategies. Together, these contributions provide the first comprehensive picture of privacy risk in web agents and establish a foundation for future security research in this area.